Night explosions in Crimea, fires at Russian air defense positions in Balaclava. Russia advances towards Pokrovsk slowly but steadily, and how Europe develops strategy to support Ukraine in case of Trump's re-election. The latest news from Ukraine and around the world. In the area of occupied Balaclava in Crimea, fires have broken out at the positions of a Russian air defense military unit. This occurred following a series of explosions on the peninsula due to an aerial attack last night, citing Crimean wind. The fires are said to have erupted at the missile positions of Russian occupying forces in Balaclava. Data from the monitoring group Crimean Wind and satellite images indicate this. It was also reported that the time between 1:57 and 2:20 a.m. coincides with the time of the attack on Sevastopol. Crimean Wind points out that the fires could have resulted either from missile launches or from missile strikes. Explosions in Crimea on the night of August 2nd. It was earlier reported that explosions were heard last night in Russian-occupied Ukrainian Crimea. Social media reported loud noises in Sevastopol, Balaclava, Saki, Evpatoria, and Simferopol. Representatives of the occupying administration claimed that a drone and missile attack on Sevastopol had taken place. Local governor Mikhail Razvazhayev alleged that the supposed massive attack was repelled. He also mentioned that debris from aerial targets fell in several streets in Sevastopol and that the warhead of an attack's missile, allegedly shot down by air defense, penetrated the roof of a 9-story building and became lodged on the technical floor. Russian troops continue to advance slowly but steadily towards the city of Pokrovsk in Donetsk region west of Avdiivka, aided by the terrain northwest of Avdiivka and the lack of Ukrainian manpower, source Institute for the Study of War. Details. Military experts anticipate that the Russian offensive will decelerate further as their troops encounter larger, more urbanized settlements. Ukrainian military analyst Konstantin Mashovets highlighted that defenders on the Pokrovsk front are disadvantaged by inferior equipment and defensive capabilities and are currently unable to significantly hinder the Russian advance. Ukrainian military analyst Konstantin Mashovets highlighted that defenders on the Pokrovsk front are disadvantaged by inferior equipment and defensive capabilities and are currently unable to significantly hinder the Russian advance. Delays in Western, particularly American military aid, have hampered the equipment of newly formed Ukrainian units and the re-equipment of those already engaged in combat. The Institute for the Study of War has assessed that Russian forces aim to achieve a limited tactical encirclement of Ukrainian forces east of the Ocheretine-Hrodivka-Mirnograd motorway, with a particular focus on the left bank of the Volcha River. Geolocated footage from the 1st of August shows Russian troops advancing further within Vasela towards the road. The furthest confirmed advance was approximately 3.5 kilometers from Rodivka's outskirts. Mashovets described the recent Russian progress southeast of the road as a tactical breach of Ukrainian lines, noting an advance of 6.5 kilometers in depth and 7.5 kilometers in width from Sokil to Serhiivka, crossing the Volcha and Kazany-Torets rivers, which run through Progress, Volcha, and Lozovatske, respectively, in recent weeks. He warned that Russian forces are nearing an operationally significant breakthrough on the Pokrovsk front by the end of August. Current Russian efforts on the Pokrovsk front are concentrated on achieving a tactical breakthrough near Zhelana and Novohrodivka. Furthermore, the central grouping of Russian forces appears to be redeploying and maneuvering forces more swiftly across its expanded area of responsibility in Donetsk region than it had in most other parts of the battlefield. This group may have developed a more agile, command and control structure, allowing for a quicker response to tactical vulnerabilities in Ukraine compared to other Russian military formations in the area. The European Commission has established a special task force to prepare for the possible return of Donald Trump to the White House. This group is developing a strategy in case of a sudden shift in Washington's stance on free trade and support for Ukraine, according to the Financial Times. Three informed sources revealed that the group is also assessing the impact of a potential Kamala Harris presidency and preparing for policy changes following the US elections in November. One source said that the goal is to determine what the consequences might be in any scenario. The team was formed by the Office of the European Commission's Secretary General and includes a small number of officials representing key directorates in trade, competition and external relations. Brussels is concerned that Trump may impose painful tariffs on Europe exports, halt support for Ukraine and pressure Kyiv to agree to Moscow's terms for ending the war. European allies are worried about Trump's threats to withdraw the US from NATO or undermine the mutual defense provisions for countries he believes are not spending enough on defense. The Europe Committee plans to intensify its work in September and increase engagement with member state governments to assess Europe's potential vulnerabilities and ways to mitigate negative consequences. Special attention will be given to developing communication plans in case of significant policy changes in the US, such as the needs for Europe taxpayers to contribute more to Ukraine's defense. The European Commission has said that it's preparing for the US elections and is considering all possible scenarios, reaffirming its commitment to a close partnership with the US. Germany's foreign ministry has also set up a similar group to prepare for a possible second Trump presidency, officials told the Financial Times. Amid the US elections in Europe, officials are attempting to establish contacts with people close to Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, including former economic advisor Mike Pyle and National Security Advisor Phil Gordon. For Brussels, a Harris presidency doesn't necessarily mean full continuity with Biden, particularly on the issue of aid to Ukraine. Trump's promises to end the war immediately could influence US public opinion on the conflict, even if he loses the election. The main question for the Europe Committee is what Trump's return could mean for Europe's economy. China has begun ramping up diplomatic pressure on the US concerning nuclear issues while simultaneously strengthening its own nuclear capabilities, according to the Financial Times. Beijing, the only permanent member of the UN Security Council that has committed to a no first-use nuclear policy, called on other members in Geneva to uphold this commitment and criticize Washington's measures to protect its allies. China has formally proposed that the no first-use policy become a key international consensus and priority. However, the US and its allies, along with analysts, view this as an attempt by Beijing to deflect Western criticism of its expanding nuclear arsenal. China presented a draft treaty or declaration on no first use to the UN Security Council's committee in Geneva, which is preparing for the upcoming review conference of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. Additionally, China condemned the US security guarantees to its NATO and Asian allies as a serious violation of the NPT, demanding their repeal. At the same time, China is expanding its stockpile of nuclear warheads and modernizing its delivery systems, leading some foreign officials to believe that the country could soon rival the US and Russia as a nuclear power. The Pentagon forecast that by 2030, China will have more than 1,000 nuclear warheads, double its current number and 4 times the amount estimated 6 years ago. Beijing is actively constructing missile silos and deploying submarines capable of carrying nuclear weapons, enabling it to launch nuclear strikes on demand rather than only in response. These developments have sparked debates among experts about whether China might be shifting away from its no first use policy and minimum deterrence strategy towards a more aggressive posture. Concerns are heightened by China's lack of transparency, as Beijing has refused to participate in arms control mechanisms. Last month, China suspended talks with the US on nuclear arms control, marking the first such exchange in 5 years. That's all for today. Thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe.